Tavis Smiley's back with us. Tavis, how are you? Good to see you.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
Do you have any evidence that you can present to this audience at all that either Ferguson or Eric Garner's death was rooted in any way, shape, matter, or form in racism? Anything you can present on that, or do you believe?
I can tell you three things. Number one, race is still the most intractable issue in this country.
I didn't ask you that.
I'm answering the question the way I choose to answer it. Number one, respectfully, racism is still the most intractable issue in this country. Okay. It's a part of everything we do still. Number two, too often black men, I know this personally, even as a host on national television, as black men too often we're seen as the boogeyman, and the presumption of guilt is always made toward us as opposed to being presumed innocent, number two. And number three, the clip you played earlier from Mayor de Blasio is right, that when too many parents in this country in 2014 still have to have the talk with their black sons for how to save and protect their own lives, something is amiss, Sean.
Right, we have two very different cases. You still haven't answered my question.
The Tavis Smiley says that most black men are treated as animals. They're not treated fairly. They're profiled. They're harassed. But to be honest with you, the black men that you are talking about are not the black men in the corporate world.
Asking in these two cases, wait a minute. There are protests, Tavis, going on all over the country. People saying, hands up, don't shoot, I can't breathe. Two very different cases here. And I'm asking if you have any evidence at all you can give our audience on the issue of this being race-related. And you haven't given our audience one specific thing in this case, or either case, have you?
I was not in Ferguson with Mr. Brown, nor was I in New York with Mr. Garner. What I can tell you is that for 50 years of my life, I've been black every one of those years. Yeah. And I know what it's like to try to navigate life in this country as an African-American man. That's what I'm saying.
All right, and I am particularly angry at the Eric Garner death. If you listen to the rest of Mrs. Garner's comments, Tavis, she talks about, oh, they used to make fun of him, call him the cigarette man, and call me, oh, there's Mrs. Cigarette Man, etc., which tells me this was about a city and a state obsessed with getting every penny they can out of the high-tax cigarettes that they have in New York, which was $6 a pack. But that's a different case. He should not have died, this man. He shouldn't have been confronted. He shouldn't have been known by the police. That, to me, is more fundamental and a lot of your arguments I would agree with, but there's no race examples here. Here's the tough conversation I want to have with you, though.
In this regard, go ahead.
Because we watch all these protests. We've sent our cameras out. We asked the protesters, what do they know about the case? Did they read the evidence that was presented to the grand jury? They didn't. I'll do it now. Because in the case of Michael Brown, there's a lesson to be learned. Don't rob a store. Don't intimidate a clerk. Don't fight a cop for his gun. Don't charge at him like a football player with his head down. Let's go to the eyewitnesses in the case, most of which happen to be black. From the grand jury testimony, I could say for sure that Brown never put his hands up after he did his body gesture. I'm going to finish and then I'll give you the floor. He ran towards the officer full charge. Witness number 30. I've heard lots of people talking about how Brown had his hands up. He did not have his hands up. Witness number 40. The big kid turned around, had his arms out with an attitude. The cop just stood there. Dang, if that kid didn't start running right at the cop like a football player with his head down. And one last one. This is witness number 48. The dude turned back around, started charging towards the police officer. The police officer told him to stop at least 3 times, and the boy wouldn't stop. Now, that doesn't sound like a narrative that has been bought by a lot of people. Hands up, don't shoot. So the narrative that's being advanced in this country right now is predicated on a lie, isn't it?
I've been patient. This is your show, obviously, and I'm delighted to be on once again with you.
You have the floor.
But I hope you'll give me as much time as you took to read those comments. Number one, with regard to Mr. Brown, when you hear Officer Wilson in his testimony refer to him as a demon and describe him in the way that he did, we go back to my earlier point, Sean, that too often black men are already presumed guilty, and that officers, not all, but too many, come at us with an approach that already raises the level of tension before you get to the unfortunate and untimely death of Mr. Brown in Ferguson. It's the way that we are viewed too often from Jump Street, number one.
Here is the problem. This is the problem with black people who go on these shows. Sean Hannity asked him a simple question. The first time he asked him a simple question, he didn't answer a yes or no. The second question was about this contradicts the narrative of what other media outlets have been displaying and what society has displayed about the Michael Brown case, where he's hands up innocent individual. The jury said, witnesses said, this is what happened. Now, there's another issue about the Michael Brown case that black people do not want to acknowledge, is the fact that the black people that said they saw Michael Brown attack the cop were silenced. They were not allowed to speak on CNN which is an acronym, in my opinion, for Control Niggas Network. They weren't allowed to go on CNN and say, no, Michael Brown actually attacked the cop. The only people that were on the media, as far as witnesses, were in support of Michael Brown, so that's suspicious in itself. Tavis Smiley does not acknowledge the fact that what these witnesses said, even though you can debate if they're telling the truth, just like you can debate if the supporters of Michael Brown are telling the truth, but he didn't acknowledge the comments. Second, he goes to saying that Officer Wilson described Michael Brown as a demon. Now, what he did here is something that I'm very disappointed with him in. He made it seem as Officer Wilson describing Michael Brown charging at him as being a demon. That's synonymous with being black, like black means demon. And I feel when you do that, you manipulate the minds of black people to believe that if someone calls you a demon, they're calling you a demon because you're black and not because of the behavior and the mindset of you. So I think it's very irresponsible for him to make it seem like as if that was racist as opposed to someone just being a demon.
Number two, with regard to the Eric Garner case, even if for the sake of argument, I'm not going to do this, but if for the sake of argument, I granted out everything you've just said about Michael Brown, how in the case of Eric Garner, Sean Hannity, my friend, do you have an officer doing something, a technique, a chokehold that is unlawful? That a chokehold that is
unlawful either. It's not policy. There's a difference. It's not. No, you're wrong.
No, I hear the difference. It's against department policy. I get it. That's the bottom line.
That's right.
Whatever you want, you're splitting terms here. Whatever you want to call it, it was against New York
But it
Police
wasn't a
Department
chokehold either. It was a
to
headlock.
apply that. It was against policy, Sean.
No.
You're splitting hairs.
A headlock? No, I'm not. There's a very distinct difference.
Sean, call it a headlock. I grant you that. Call it a
There you
headlock.
go.
It's against department
That's not
policy.
against
Number
policy.
one, it is against policy,
it's
Sean.
not.
It was an unarmed man. Let me finish. An unarmed man. Number two. Number three, caught on videotape. So much for body cameras. And number four, the coroner says it's a homicide, and you still want to invite me on this show to argue with me about the fact that Eric Garner is dead? Are you serious?
You obviously,
Are you serious?
No, you need to listen to me because you aren't hearing me. So let me educate you, because what I said is the police the police had no business being near this guy and arresting him 9 times in his life because the greedy city and the greedy government in New York were arresting him over selling untaxed cigarettes. That is madness to me. Number one. Number two, whether you like it or not, when he's moving his hands around and saying don't do, he resisted. I grant you he did not deserve the force in that case. There is a distinction. I only pointed out because that's what the grand jury heard.
But Sean,
I want the grand jury evidence released so that we can hear what they heard about chokeholds and headlocks.
You read the entire transcript. I heard it. Here's the point I'm making.
Well, that was the other
that you have not, with all due respect, you have not shown anywhere near the kind of outrage. You said it because
you
the video
leaves
you no choice.
You're not listening to me. You are not listening to me. This man should be alive today. Then listen to me.
The kind of indignity that you ought to have for Eric Garner being killed.
He shouldn't have been killed.
You spent all this time reading about Michael Brown.
Listen to me.
You don't care about the death of Eric Garner.
You know what? You know what?
Not in the way you should.
You know what? You're wrong. And you're wrong on a number of points.
Let me say something else.
No, don't filibuster. No, Tavis.
Okay, first, the first thing I want to say about the Eric Garner case is, as far as the technique used, I've said this in my video about the Eric Garner hoax. The thing is, Tavis Smiley is saying that the chokehold technique, chokehold, headlock, he says he's splitting hairs. That's frivolous to try to debate about whether the right terminology and what technique is used. Well, the problem is, here's the thing. Sean Hannity pointed out, if you are resisting arrest, let's say that the chokehold was banned from the police department as far as the technique of taking down a suspect. Well, here's the problem. Let's say you have a 350-pound individual resisting arrest. How do you apprehend that suspect? This is something that people are not paying attention to. Now, I'm not condoning a chokehold, but against a 350-pound suspect that is resisting arrest. He's putting his hands up and he's saying, you're not going to arrest me. At this point, the authorities have to do something to arrest the suspect. Well, should they taser him? Well, here's the problem. A lot of people will say, well, you should have tasered him. The problem is, if he's resisting arrest, perhaps if you tasered him, he would become even more violent. He would become even more aggressive. Now you have a 350-pound suspect rambling around, right? Stomping around, and it's two cops there that are, 170 pounds, and they have to try to apprehend that suspect. That's number one. Number two, which is a very important point. If the suspect is resisting arrest, and there is a technique that has been banned from the police department, the New York State Police Department, of a chokehold. If the cop says, "Well, this is the only way to take down the suspect," and you use a chokehold technique to weaken the suspect into submission, and sure enough, as you saw when they used the chokehold, well, you even refute that because in the video, if you slow it down, he didn't really, he wasn't choking him. He just had his forearm against his neck. But that was a takedown move. Now, if he used a banned technique, but they arrested the suspect, they apprehended the suspect, what happens? He doesn't get fired for using a banned technique. He gets what? Suspended. Because the chief, the police would say, that was a banned technique. You were not supposed to use that. You were suspended. But you apprehended the suspect, and that's what we're in the business of doing, fighting crime, arresting criminals. So they suspend him.
You're not going to make that allegation on this program without listening to what I have to say. You need to be one other thing. You need to be educated. I say the cops never should have been there. They never should have arrested this guy. They never should have arrested him the first time. And I'm telling you, the greed of government caused the cops to go there because the government wanted their money. I am angry about what happened. So don't put words in my mouth or feelings that I have and put them aside. You need to listen to what really happened.
Let me say one more thing and I'll let you go, my friend.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Number one, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that too often our white brothers and sisters even unwittingly talk down to black people and come at them with a wrong approach. Three times you're going to tell me that I need to be educated when I know this stuff as well as you do, number one.
I say it to everybody, Chad.
Here's my final point. Sean, hear me.
You need to be able to handle a debate, Tavis.
I want to add this.
You need to be able to handle a solid debate and having.
And unfortunately, I don't necessarily agree with Fox News. I don't think they're racist. I think a lot of black people have been conditioned to believe that Fox News is racist, CNN, MSNBC are for black people. But Sean Hannity says you need to be able to handle a debate. And one of the things that happens in a debate, one of the things that they teach you, well, I debate, and I've learned that one of the things you're not supposed to do in a debate is let your emotions get the best of you. And what happened is Tavis Smiley took offense to Sean Hannity saying you need to be educated. He didn't say you need to be educated. Why would Tavis Smiley believe? And see, this is the problem. Tavis Smiley is showing signs of race baiting because as a very intelligent, educated man with a college degree and has a talk show, politically intelligent, why would he take offense to Sean Hannity saying you need to be educated? You have more credentials than Sean Hannity. You're a professor. You are intelligent. You're a lecturer. You have a talk show. You have been doing this for 10 plus years. Why would you think that that's an insult to your intellect? Because he didn't believe it in his heart that Sean Hannity was telling him you need to be educated because you're a black person and you're not educated. So obviously Sean Hannity was talking about you need to be educated about this case, right? But of course, Tavis Smiley with the emotions, and this is a problem that black people have. They fall victim to the assumption that another race would be attacking them from a racist perspective. And we all know when you assume, you make an ass out of yourself. And Tavis Smiley intellectually made an ass out of himself. Because what he did is he played on the racism while Sean Hannity just presented the facts of the case from the jury perspective, the verdict. And he's still trying to play the race card. And Sean Hannity says you need to be educated about this. He should have just said you need to be educated about this case. But I don't think that matters.